Weekend of
Hi, and welcome to the TBGS podcast, episode 24. I'm Sonja Wood, and as per usual, in the studio with me today is my son, James.
Hello.
There he is. And as per usual, we're going to talk about board games, because that's what it's all about after all.
It is that board game show, after all.
That board game show. And what we usually do in our podcast is just talk about whatever is happening in the moment or in the moments that have passed, more to the point.
The week at that board game show.
Yes. So we've told you all about ISS Vanguard, which has been the hot topic for us because, we waited for it. And then James did an unboxing video. No, sorry, not an unboxing, box
Organizing video.
And then you did the tutorial. And those are both now on that board game show YouTube channel, so people can watch them. So we don't need to talk any more about ISS Vanguard. We don't need to, but we'd like to.
But we probably will.
Yeah. It is. Okay, let's not go. I was about to go down the road of how wonderful ISS Vanguard is, but we've spoken at length about that. So what we'll do today is chat about what has been happening in the past week or weeks. And last Friday, we had our friend Simon. Anybody who's been following this podcast would have met Simon. We introduced him in a prior podcast some long time ago. And Simon came up to visit us. When I say up, he lives down south on the coast and we live in the Midlands.
Up in the mountains.
Up in the mountains, and he lives down at the beach side, the ocean side. And so he came up to have some cool time in the mountains. Well needed because it's been sweltering hot down there.
It's been sweltering hot up here as well, so he didn't get much of a reprieve.
No, but it was at least a little better.
Maybe a couple degrees cooler.
Yeah. And so we went into the film studio and Simon sat at the table and he played The Cure.
Pandemic, The Cure.
Pandemic, The Cure, the dice game. Is it called the dice game?
I don't think it's called the dice game, but it's Pandemic with dice. So it is the Pandemic dice game, but I think its official name is Pandemic The Cure. I don't know if they have the dice game shoehorned in there somewhere.
Okay. Well, even so, you filmed him playing that as like a explainer video.
Yeah, sort of. Well, he did a full playthrough, so it was basically simulated a 3-player playthrough. So he controlled 3 characters, but played it solo. Because it's not technically a solo game, doesn't officially have a solo mode, but as is the case with regular Pandemic or almost any co-op game with open information, you can just multi-hand it to make it solo.
So that's what he did, and you filmed that.
Yep.
And now, of course, it goes to the edit queue, so it's not just going to happen next week.
It's got to get in the queue, and it's got to wait its turn, and then it's got to sit on the edit table for a week or 2 or 3 or however long it takes me to agonize over all the little details.
While you fine-tune it. Because Jamie does the post-production process and the production process and all the whole process, actually. But in this instance, Simon was the presenter, and you are normally the presenter. So you had a guest presenter. Which
Had
was
a break
nice.
from sitting in front of the camera, and I got to stand behind it for a change.
And now you can be in the spot that is your preferred, isn't it? And that is in the edit suite. Yeah. So, but as you might have gathered from any YouTube videos on that board game show that you may have watched, Jamie likes to be specific with his details, which people appreciate, we have found. People say, well, thanks so much for giving us the detail.
Being so pedantic.
Well, so concise, actually, is what they say. I don't think anybody called you pedantic yet. But anyway, some might see it that way. But then again, I'm your mother and I always see the good,
Fortunately, the YouTube comments have been very kind to me thus far.
That's wonderful. So
Long
people
may that last.
Yeah, people appreciate your precision. Okay, so back to The Cure, Pandemic The Cure. Pandemic The Cure was a game that we were looking at a while ago, and shouldn't we?
Long while ago. I think it came out in like 2014, 2015.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been around for a while.
And we have a lot of the Pandemic games, not all of them.
Nope.
We have the ones that we want to have. And The
Probably have
Cure.
to buy an entire second shelf if we wanted to have all the pandemic
Yeah.
games.
So we have a few, and The Cure was one of those, should we, shouldn't we? And you know what happened? When I looked at some videos of it, which is now going to lead me into saying why I like your precision and your clarity and all that on your videos, because the videos I watched of The Cure, whichever ones they were at that time, I thought, oh, the map's gone, like the world map. And that was quite a feature for me in the pandemics that, it was about the map and you were traveling around this map, and it made part of the experience of pandemic being quite specific to me because I'm all about the theme.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, the standard pandemic board game is played on a map of the world. So
Yes.
you're flying, you've got all the sort of major cities in each country and all the different continents, and you're flying around from continent to continent, treating diseases and trying to find cures for diseases. So what you didn't take to with the dice game initially
When I
is
saw
that
it on
when you saw it on the
videos, yeah.
is they've instead of having a world map board, which is the full map, each continent is only represented. So you don't have individual cities. You've just got
The different continents.
6. Yeah, there's 6 continents, and each continent is just a little round disc.
Actually, there are 7 continents because we play the 7th continent board game, which is just a fantasy, imaginary 7th continent. It's not for real.
There's 7 continents in board game land, not in real land.
So when Simon brought his version of Pandemic The Cure, his own copy, should I say, and he played it, and then you filmed it, and then we got it to the table for the 3 of us to play it. And I was highly impressed because, oh, yay, it's not the maps. It hasn't just disappeared. It's just presented differently in round discs.
It's just been disassembled.
Yeah. So I quite enjoyed that. Not only, I can't say I actually quite enjoyed it. I can say I very much enjoyed playing the game.
Definitely one we need to give another try to.
Yes. And it's probably going to go on our we would like to buy that game sometime list. Yep.
Keep our eyes peeled for it.
Yeah, so that's what's been happening with us currently is we've discovered that a game that was on the list of maybe has
On the fence.
become a definite. It's moved across onto the definite list.
I think it makes quite a big difference seeing something tangibly versus just online and in videos and things. And so, there's something to be said for going to a physical retail shop, and actually looking at the game, seeing it in play. I think that's why conventions are still such a big thing, because people get to actually go and demo and see, and it's different, seeing the components and the art and everything up close in person versus
Well, as we
on a
say, our
screen.
expression is it's first prize
Yeah.
in our view. But then again, it may be first prize for somebody else to be able to watch a very concise video. So I'll come back to your videos because we know you spend a lot of time in the edit suite. That's why they don't just go film up, film upload. You don't have that rotation. You have film, edit suite for a few weeks, and then upload.
Upload eventually.
Yeah. And we've got very slow internet, so it can take 3 days to upload and it can bomb out halfway and then we've got to start again. And so we can't even put a timeline as to when things are going to be uploaded because we just don't know always. However, I like it that your videos make it as clear as possible because we think it's second prize, but I'm just saying it could be first prize for people that could never, ever, ever even consider attending a convention because not everybody can. And so, yay.
Yeah, I'd say the videos, for us, videos are primarily first prize because we live
Where we
several hours away from our nearest board game shop. So for us to go physically see things or physically go to conventions, we don't really have any board game conventions in South Africa. So our only options are to do international travel, which I'm sure anybody listening in 2023 knows what that entails.
So it's not first prize for us anymore.
No. So yeah, I try to do my best with the videos to emulate the in-person experience as far as I possibly can. So I really try and show everything in as much detail and as much clarity as possible so that so that you don't lose something. You know, if I'm going to have a top-down shot, I try not to just leave it as a top-down shot and point at something and you can't see what I'm pointing at, you know. If I point at something, I'll try and zoom in, enlarge, B-roll something to make that tiny little icon on the board pop up full screen so that you can actually see it as if you were at the table looking closely at that piece.
Picking up that card or that icon or that meeple or whatever. You know, and you've said in our conversations we've had that your objective is to try and create the feeling of somebody sitting across the table from you.
Yeah.
That's been one of your objectives, and it's really hard to achieve that through digital. But you do the best you can, and I think it comes across very well. So it'll be interesting to see what your Pandemic the Cure video is like, and the experience of that versus years ago when I watched the videos and decided, no, we won't get that one. And now, as you've heard, it's going on to our we want to get side of the list.
I think you've also got to watch a range of reviews, because what might have happened, my reference of when we looked at Pandemic the Cure years back is we watched quite a few reviews on it that were fairly ho-hum. You know, there were quite a few people who weren't particularly blown away by it. But then we played it and we really enjoyed it. So I think, you know, there's merit in getting a good range of reviews as well and seeing different opinions and learning how to take from a review that you're watching, not just what the final verdict of the person says. They rated a 10 and it's an amazing game, or they rated a 2 and it's terrible.
Well, for example, I rate the Pandemic the Cure high. Do you know why? Because it's got a lot of dice. I love games with dice, I've come to know. And so somebody else who dice isn't important to them.
For some people, that would be the worst thing ever to do to Pandemic, is add dice to it.
Yeah, because, I mean, you know, that's just removing some of the strategy or however they may have thoughts about it. So, I think, as you say,
learning to cherry pick from a review or a playthrough or whatever, the elements that are applicable to you and what are you looking for in a game and what do you like. If you love dice, well then the person reviewing the game who hates dice games isn't going to necessarily gel with.
And you know, as Jamie was saying, we do a lot of video reviewing of games ourselves, hence him making. Watching and making.
Well, we don't make reviews.
Oh, no, we don't do reviews, but making videos, I'm saying. And in actual fact, I was watching one of the board game channels, and the person who was presenting some of the games said, theme is nothing to them. They don't even look at the theme. Theme it's all has to be about the strategy. And I thought, okay, I will pay attention to the strategy of this game, but then I'm going to find someone who talks about
Find someone who cares about theme.
And so you see, that's what we're doing now, is we're looking at, watch this video for the person who's speaking strongly about the theme, bringing that out, and another person who's bringing the mechanism out, and so on and so forth. So, yeah. Anyway, I'll say it again. I like your videos in the fact that your objective is to hopefully get that person across the table and you letting them get the experience of knowing what the game is all about and not actually putting your opinion on it. That's what I found. You say we don't do reviews because you're very intentional about not saying, I like this about the game and I don't like this about the game. You just say, here is the game.
Yeah.
And
let you draw your own conclusions.
And that's just one of the criteria of the TBGS board game channel. That board game show. Show you the game. Okay, so that's Pandemic the Cure. And what else happened this weekend? I know what happened. One, we got Greg, that's my husband, to the table, which is a rare thing because he's not one of the big board game hobbyists in the land. He prefers to do other things than play board games. So again, everybody to their own. But he did join us for a cooperative game.
Pandemic Iberia.
Yes, and
another pandemic game.
What I enjoyed about having Greg at the table, not just because he's my husband and I was glad that he was playing games, but also the fact that he brings a different thinking and strategy and ideas. And I just thought, it's not only just about the people who absolutely love being at the table and love playing, even those that are just there for the sake of others, it really adds to the game. So I thought for this podcast, I would like to encourage people who are listening to just hopefully encourage others to the table, even if they're not big board game enthusiasts, because I think it's nice for the person who's not that and they have a different experience. It's not their hobby, but they join us anyway. It just adds to the experience for them, for their own experience. And also the board game players. It doesn't always have to always be about it being board game enthusiasts that are playing the game. So that's something that I found to be a big plus this weekend. And the other plus is that you did a count on how many games you played, you and Simon mostly, two-player. And how many was it? Total of?
I think it was 10. 10 plays across 10 different games.
Oh, how wonderful. And the highlight? Would you give one a highlight from an experience point of view?
Okay, well, let's just rattle off the ones we played. We played Harbour, Arctic Scavengers, Pandemic the Cure, Hive Pocket, Tides of Time, Ancient Terrible Things Reawakened, Pandemic Iberia, Tiny Epic Quest, Tiny Epic Tactics, and Tiny Epic Dungeons.
A little tiny epic.
So it kind of turned into a Tiny Epic weekend. Probably the highlight, maybe winning Tiny Epic Dungeons for the first time.
Okay. I'd say the highlight for me was having Dad join us to play Pandemic Iberia, followed closely on the heels by Pandemic the Cure. And then third along was actually having Simon. Just is so nice, having a friend for the weekend. And he's quite a comical fellow, so he gets us having a lot of giggles. So that was fun. So suffice to say, a lot of fun was had this weekend playing board games with some yummy food interspersed. Actually, Greg is the caterer. That's why he prefers to be in the kitchen with his apron on that says, "Don't worry, I've got this. I watched a YouTube channel." Or YouTube video, sorry. Chef Greg. Anyway, he created some delicious meals for us. So that's always a part of it as well. We enjoy the snacks and the food and the whole experience. And talking of which, I need to go put the kettle on now because it's tea time. So I am going to say thank you for joining us on the TBGS podcast, and I'm off to make tea. Bye.
And I shall say thank you to Simon for coming up and joining us for another fun-filled weekend of board gaming. And I encourage you, listening, wherever you happen to be, to call on your friends, get together, or go and dust off one of your favorite solo games and just have fun around the table and build those memories. And if you have enjoyed this show, and if you have enjoyed the YouTube videos and the work that we put out there, we would greatly appreciate your support if you would consider heading over to patreon.com/thatboardgameshow, or joining up as a channel member on YouTube, where you can gain some access to behind-the-scenes content and bonus episodes, and support the ongoing work that we're doing here to bring this non-review type content to you. And with that, I shall say thank you ever so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the show.